our land, glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Let the doors be opened, que l'on ouvre les portes. Merci beaucoup. Merci, Maj. Merci beaucoup. Statements by members, déclaration de députés. L'honorable député. The Honourable Member for Rosemont-La Petite Patrie. Mr. Speaker, we live in a disturbing world where truth and facts seem to be gradually disappearing under the onslaught of misinformation with the rise of far-right ideas, the men's movement, and fake news. Many experts are sounding the alarm. This has an impact on democracy and public debate. With less space for reliable news, many people will be much less informed. Bill C-18 was intended to require platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and Google to negotiate agreements with the media for news content. But today, widespread blocking of access to news persists, and it's been going on for 2 years. This summer, in an attempt to appease President Trump, the Prime Minister even backed down on his commitment to tax these digital giants. They're not paying their fair share, and they're flooding us with fake news, and that exacerbates tensions and divisions. Once again, the Liberals are backing down in the face of the web giants, and it's our democracy that's paying the price. Be central.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to acknowledge an important part of Taiwanese culture. This summer, I had the privilege of sharing my heritage with Burnaby Central by welcoming the statue of Mazu from a respected temple in Taiwan. Like the good people of Burnaby Central, those in Taiwan carry the resilient spirit long symbolized by Mazu. Also known as the goddess of the sea, Mazu is honored across Asia for her strength, courage, and hope. For centuries, she has guided travelers through turbulent waters, inspiring generations, and offering protection equally to all. Canada itself has been defined by the sea, through migration, international trade, and the courage of those who journeyed across the seas to call the true North home. Just like Mazu offers safe harbor, we must lead Canada with vision, care, and responsibility in uncertain times. Mazu's legacy reminds us that in our diversity lies our strength to build a Canada that's safe, inclusive, strong, and free. Merci beaucoup.
Wow. The Honourable Member for Calgary-Crowfoot.
Speaker, Malcolm Torrance unexpectedly passed away peacefully in his sleep at age 20 on April 2nd during the recent election. Malcolm was a loving son and trusted friend, a political science student, president of the University of Calgary Conservatives, a former Conservative intern known to many here on the Hill, director of the Calgary-Crowfoot Conservative Association, and at the time of his death, an active and dedicated volunteer on my election team. During his short life, he had a significant impact on his community and touched the lives of many. While ideologically driven and with strong opinions, he always treated everyone with respect, including those with whom he did not agree. As an ongoing celebration of Malcolm's life, the Malcolm Torrance Award in Canadian politics will be established by his family, his friends, and his University of Calgary colleagues. He leaves a legacy of friendship, memories, public service, and inspiration to others. Rest well, Malcolm.
The Honourable Member for Fleetwood-Port Kells.
Mr. Speaker, over the summer at various engagement event in my riding of Fleetwood-Port Cal, I had countless conversations with constituents. Their concerns came through loud and clear. People are worried about crime, extortion, bail reform, and about the rising cost of living. That's why our government is taking action. This also includes the introduction of my private member's bill to establish a national framework to improve food price transparency so Canadians can compare prices, make informed choices, and save money at the grocery store. Canadians deserve a future that is fairer, safer, and affordable. This comment, and I'm committed to deliver on that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Oxford.
Mr. Speaker, it's a busy time for our farmers in Oxford and across our country as they bring home the harvest. Oxford is home to more than 3,000 grain farmers out of 28,000 from our province who generate more than $27 billion for our economy and support more than 90,000 jobs. Our farmers rise before dawn, work late, and battle the elements. But today, they face more than the weather. They face a Liberal government that attacks their way of life.
That's right.
Farmers are burdened by rising input costs, red tape, supply chain disruptions, punishing fertilizer tariffs, and a trade crisis that includes a 75% tariff on canola by Beijing. Despite the Prime Minister's claim of being a master negotiator, trade disputes with the U.S. and China have worsened. He even met with the Premier of China yesterday, and surprise, surprise, there's no deal. This hurts our farmers, and they pay the price. Despite it all, our farmers press on. Long days in the field, early mornings, generations farming together. Mr. Speaker, as Conservatives, we thank God for our farmers, because when our farmers grow, Canada grows. Thank you.
L'honorable député de The honourable member for Sherbrooke. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, welcome back. We've all returned from our ridings, more motivated than ever for this new session, I am for sure. For my part, I return with a pride in Sherbrooke that I can't hide. Today I'm celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Sherbrooke Quantum Institute, a remarkable success story in a highly competitive field. Born out of the Apogee Canada project, with the smallest grant in its group, the Institute has transformed its ambition into concrete impact with the birth of companies such as Cubic, Nord Quantique, and SB Quantum. These companies, which grew out of student projects, are living proof of Sherbrooke's success. With more than $230 million in research, 100 scientific articles per year in the most prestigious journals, and international partnerships with France and Australia, the Institute promotes the University of Sherbrooke, Sherbrooke, and Canada, establishing itself as a world leader. Member for Windsor-Tecumseh Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, it's an honour to rise on behalf of the people of Windsor-Tecumseh Lakeshore. I'd like to thank my community for putting their trust in me, and I promised I will always work very hard to deserve it. Today, I would like to acknowledge my friend, the Mayor of Windsor, Drew Dilkins. Mayor Dilkins is currently recovering from a recent surgery for prostate cancer. I admire him for his character, strength, and leadership in candidly sharing his story and advocating for early detection. I'm inspired to bring his message to Ottawa. September is National Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. Prostate cancer can be a silent killer, but a simple blood test can save lives. So to all men, my message is, for yourself, for your children, for your friends and family, please, please get tested. I ask that we keep our thoughts and prayers with Mayor Dilkins and his family during this recovery.
Hear, hear.
The honourable member for Pierrefonds-Dollard.
Mr. Speaker, this Sunday was the International Day of Peace. It was also the day our government, under the Prime Minister's leadership, recognized the state of Palestine. We did this with our allies, the UK, France, and Australia. This was a historic moment. The recognition of Palestine is in full keeping with Canada's long-standing support of the two-state solution. Since 1947, Canadian governments of all stripes have stood by this. Our foreign policy seeks to ensure that all in the region, regardless of ethnicity, faith, or what borders one happened to be born within, can live in peace and security. What is happening in Gaza is gut-wrenching. Children are being killed in the tens of thousands. Families are being repeatedly displaced. Starvation is settling in. The nightmare in Palestine has to stop. We need an end to this war, the release of all the hostages and prisoners. We need peace for Palestinians, Israelis, and all in the region. Thank you, Mr.
The honourable member for Bow River.
Mr. Speaker, just yesterday the Liberals voted to keep the Liberal energy production cap in place, a move that kills Canadian jobs and weakens our economy. This isn't just bad policy, it's common sense ignored. The Liberals are choking off Canadian energy, and the Prime Minister pats Beijing on the back. The regime building 2 new coal-fired power plants every week. The parliamentary budget officer stated the emissions cap will wipe out $20 billion in GDP. It will cost over 40,000 jobs. That's families struggling, communities hurting, and a country falling behind. The emissions cap is a production cap. The Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers stated the emissions cap has driven investment out of Canada. The Prime Minister promised a new era that Canada will become an energy superpower, and what did the Canadians get? Bait and switch, a list that doesn't even include a pipeline project on its national interest list. Albertans know the answer isn't to keep strangling jobs with Ottawa's red tape. It's time to scrap this emissions cap. It's a production cap, and stop killing Canadian energy and revive our country.
L'honorable député de The honourable member for Beauharnois-Salaberry-Soulanges Huntingdon. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to pay tribute to a man who shaped the soul of St. Polycarpe, a centuries-old municipality in my riding. After more than 30 years of service, including 10 as mayor, Jean-Yves Poirier is ending an exemplary career dedicated to serving his community. Mr. Poirier has made his town his passion. A man of action, he knows everybody, takes an interest in their stories, and shares their joys and trials. Out in the streets, he looks after the well-being of all. Through his approachability and attentiveness, he has embodied the dignity and nobility of public service. St. Polycarpe owes him much more than his municipal achievements. It owes him for having brought together farmers, professionals, seniors, and young families, all united by their sense of belonging to their community. Your dedication, Mr. Poirier, will remain engraved in the memory and hearts of generations to come. The honourable member for Vancouver Quadra.
Mr. Speaker, as we continue Gender Equality Week, I want to echo the words of the chair of the Women's Caucus that every 48 hours in this country, a woman or a girl is killed, often by an intimate partner. And unfortunately, another stat is that Indigenous women and girls are disproportionately a part of that statistic. 30% of them are Indigenous women or girls, when only 5% of them make up the population of Canada. The crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls remains a national tragedy, tearing families apart, communities grieving, and families shattered. The tragedy is compounded by systems that have far too often abandoned them. And today, I think back to my own community for thousands of years of Musqueam, where women were the matriarchs, they were the decision makers, they were the ones we looked to in times of need, in times of crisis. And as a father of a young Indigenous girl, I'm so happy to be here in this house. She's here on the Hill with me today, seeing 104 women that she can look up to strengthen her for the future of this country. Thank you so much.
The honourable member for York Centre.
They rewarded terror. Speaker, Hamas started this awful war. It sliced babies, raped women, and killed 1,200 people. It kidnapped over 250 and still holds 48 hostages. Listen to Hamas. They say that state recognition is a fruit of October 7, and they vow to repeat it again and again. But the Liberals reward this barbarism by recognizing Hamastan without preconditions, not even as a return of the hostages. The Palestinian Authority in the West Bank has been paying terrorists to slaughter Jews for 20 years. That's who this Prime Minister wants in charge? Hamas is responsible for every death in Gaza by setting up military installations in schools, mosques, and hospitals. Everyone knows that. The Islamic Jihad loves to cause civilian deaths because civilian deaths on TV advance its political causes like it does right now. Canada's recognition of this Palestinian state will result in more deaths, 100%. They've recognized the terrorist state on Rosh Hashanah. Shame on you.
The honourable member for Vancouver Granville.
Mr. Speaker, this summer was truly an incredible season across the riding of Vancouver Granville. From local festivals such as the Dragon Boat races on our shore to the community days that were held across our riding, our neighbours came together in ways, so many ways, to showcase the vibrant spirit of our constituency. I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to all the volunteers and community members who helped make all these events possible. In particular, our own summer gathering, which saw hundreds of people come out to share food, stories, and ideas. It was a testament to the strength of our community and the dedication of those who give their time to bring us all together. Mr. Speaker, our constituents, including some who are in the gallery today, are the heartbeat of Vancouver Granville. Their engagement over the summer months has once again shown us that when we come together, we build a stronger, more connected community, and I'm honored to carry those voices and their hopes back to Ottawa as we continue our work together here in this chamber. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Caribou Prince George.
In 6 months, this Prime Minister has proven he's only good at one thing: breaking promises. He promised the fastest growing economy in the G7. Instead, he delivered the fastest shrinking economy. He said Canadians should judge him by the prices at the grocery store. Food prices are now higher than ever before he was Prime Minister. Build, baby, build, he said. Double the pace of home construction, he said. Instead, is being block, baby, block, and home building is down 16%. Building major projects at speed we haven't seen in generations, he said. He must have meant glacial speeds. He hasn't granted a single permit. He claimed he'd get a deal done with the U.S. by July 21st. Elbows up, he said, and yet elbows are firmly down, tucked in, and this guy's afraid to go into the corners. Canada still has no deal. He pledged he would spend less, but spending is up 8%, and the deficit is projected to reach over $100 billion. This guy fashions himself as a hockey player. Well, I'm a hockey coach, and he should be benched.
The honourable member for Argenteuil, La Petite Nation. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate two of our people, two true artists of Montebello's pastry, Sabrina Sigouin, owner of La Belle Pâtisserie, and Sandra Major, owner of Le Sucre au Four. Together, they won the Grand Prix at the International Baking Industry Expo in Las Vegas, whose competitive portion was held from September 13th to 17th. The IBIE is the largest event in the Western Hemisphere in the field of grain-based foods, a trade show that brings together all segments of the baking and pastry industry. In a fiercely competitive international competition, Sabrina and Sandra truly stood out, both for the finesse of their artistry and their technical mastery, their sculpted cakes decorated with buttercream, and their overall creativity. Their victory is not just a local victory, it's a national and even international recognition of the talent we have in our region. In Argenteuil, La Petite Nation. A member for Edmonton Northwest.
For Indigenous people, this gun grab program threatens our Aboriginal inherent and treaty rights to live off the land. Our hunting rifles are not the Prime Minister's political props. They are part of our way of life and tradition, passed down through generations rooted in responsibility to feed our families. Confiscating lawful guns while smugglers pour illegal guns across the border shows how badly the Liberals have lost their way. How can judges, police officers, and others involved in law enforcement and justice trust his public safety minister when he says one thing behind closed doors and another thing in this chamber? The $742 million wasted here can fund 5,000 police officers, 37,000 treatment beds, but instead Canadians are feeling less safe and Indigenous peoples have our rights threatened. The public safety minister is failing. The minister and the Prime Minister must be held accountable, and Canadians deserve real safety, not Liberal games. Will the Prime Minister do the right thing and replace the public safety minister?
The honourable member for Brossard Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, it's with great joy and a touch of personal pride that I rise today to mark the 50th anniversary of the South Shore's Maison Internationale. This organization, where I gained extraordinary professional and social experience, is at the heart of welcoming and integrating refugees and immigrants to the South Shore of Montreal. It started in 1975 to support community members. They began helping resettle refugees and immigrants. They have been an incredible partner in resettlement efforts in our area, through efforts to teach French and help people find jobs. They are helping thousands of people who choose to live on the South Shore of Montreal. Throughout my life, I've been fortunate to work in professions that I am passionate about. For 15 years, Maison Internationale was one of those passions. Congratulations on 50 years of service to the community. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Liberals have increased crime, firearm crime, by 136%. They waste money. They're going after hunters and farmers. Meanwhile, they're taking money away from border and police services. Through all this, they've caused this crime wave. The public safety minister admitted that it's not working, the program won't work, but it's for electoralist reasons.
The minister has admitted that going after farmers and hunters' rifles is not going to fight crime. So the only reason to do this is politics. If he was telling the truth, then why not reverse? If not, why isn't he fired?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the gun registry, what the government is doing with the gun registry is putting in place a much more efficient way, for Canadians to voluntarily return prohibited firearms, for fair compensation. This government is going to do it right.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
But his own Minister of Public Safety says this government is doing it wrong. He was caught on tape saying the program won't work, and yet they are going to rip $750 million away from our border and police services to harass duck hunters and farmers by banning the firearms they use. This approach has led to a 130% increase in gun crime under the Liberals' watch. The police say they won't implement it. The minister says it's a bad idea, but they're only doing it for political reasons. Why is the Prime Minister putting lives at risk for politics?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I don't even know where to begin with that.
That's right.
First off, I don't know where to begin because of all the misrepresentations in that intervention. The person who's putting lives at risk is the Leader of the Opposition who's voted against every single piece of gun legislation. What the Minister of Public Safety is doing it right. He's correcting an inefficient system to provide Canadians with fair...
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I have voted against the Liberal policy of reducing criminal sentences for those who use guns to commit extortion, to commit robbery, and to commit other serious offenses, while voting in favor of locking up criminals who use guns in the commission of crime. The police say that 90% of crime is done with guns that come illegally over the broken Liberal border. The Liberal Public Safety Minister admits that the Prime Minister is only playing politics. Will the Prime Minister stop the politics, fire the Minister, and leave Grandpa Joe's hunting rifle alone?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Once again, Mr. Speaker, I will have too little time to address all the issues, but let me go back to something the Leader of the Opposition said, which he described farmers, duck hunters using AR-15s to hunt. I don't see that. I don't see that in my great province of Alberta. I also know that what the Minister of Public Safety and this government are doing is tightening the border. Bill C-2, will the opposition stand up and support the tightening of the border?
Good question.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
And there, the Prime Minister just admitted that he doesn't even know what his gun ban applies to.
That's right.
For example, this gun ban applies to 10 and 12 gauge shotguns, which are used by the great people of Alberta and all Canadians for duck hunting. It applies to 70 22 caliber firearms that are used by almost every farmer to go after gophers. Will the Prime Minister stop wasting money banning gopher guns, read his briefing notes so that he knows what he's talking about, and fire that incompetent minister?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what this government is doing is providing fair compensation for Canadians to return illegal firearms, illegal assault rifles, and what this government is doing is proposing the biggest tightening of our border in our nation's history. We want the support of the opposition to make sure that happens.
That's a very good point.
The Right Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
And he has absolutely no idea what guns he's banning, Mr. Speaker. He's banning 22s. These are known as farmers' guns to go after gophers and other pests. One of them is even called the plinkster, because that's the sound it makes when it bounces off a pop can. The Prime Minister is wasting precious border and police resources, harassing farmers, banning duck hunters, when real gun crime rages in our streets. Once again, will he pick up a briefing note so that he knows what he's talking about and go after the real criminals?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition has his briefing notes. The RCMP has their experience. The RCMP vets this list, decides this list, what are real guns and what are assault rifles, what should be kept off the streets. That is the process, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's knowledge bank on this subject is now depleted, so we'll move on to something else. The subject of food prices. Prime Minister said that he would be judged on the prices at the grocery store. Well, the verdict is in. Food prices are rising 50% faster in Canada than in the U.S., almost double the Bank of Canada's target. The Daily Bread says there will be 4 million visitors to Toronto food banks, a doubling over 2 years ago. And yet the Prime Minister has 3 grocery taxes in place and going up while people line up at food banks. Will he stop taxing food so Canadians can afford to eat?
Hear, hear. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me bring the Leader of the Opposition up to speed on taxes. This government cut taxes for 22 million Canadians. This government cut taxes on first-time home buyers. This government cut the carbon tax.
The Honourable. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister will, of course, have read his government's factum filed with the Supreme Court of Canada against state secularism in Quebec in the context of the notwithstanding clause. He will have read it, surely, and his Attorney General signed it. This Prime Minister solemnly swore that he would help Quebecers. He asked for their support. It suggested in the factum that we might use the clause to bring back slavery or take away women's rights, take away their vote. Does the Prime Minister believe any of that? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, what protects Canadians and Quebecers, men and women, young people and older people? What protects us all is the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It is the Government of Canada's responsibility to defend the Charter. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. I want all Quebecers to see all these Liberals rising to collectively insult them. I'd like the Prime Minister to explain to me why, in his factum, he felt it was necessary to mention that Quebec might possibly bring back forced labor, slavery. There's also mention of racism. I'd like the Prime Minister to explain to me why Quebecers who live in the most progressive society in the Americas would bring back summary executions and death sentences. Why would he allow such insults to be written? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, There is a charter. There is a charter of rights and freedoms. These are the rights and freedoms of Quebecers and of Canadians. It is the Government of Canada's job to defend it. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, there's also a constitution. It was imposed on us and includes the notwithstanding clause, which we have the right to invoke. The government is opposed to the clause, and they have also leveled incredibly insulting criticisms at Quebec and at other Canadian provinces. Will the Prime Minister do the only decent thing, which would be to withdraw the factum and to apologize to Quebecers? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the government will not backtrack. We are defending the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. As for invoking the notwithstanding clause, that decision is up to the Supreme Court of Canada.
Member for Dufferin-Caledon.
What do you call a person who says one thing in public and then the exact opposite thing in private? Because that's exactly what this public safety minister did. He called the Liberal $750 million gun buyback a politically motivated scam. His #1 job is to keep Canadians safe. Violent crime is up, gun crime is up, and 90% of gun crimes, police say, come from illegal guns. His main plan he calls a scam. This is stunning incompetence. Why hasn't he been fired?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I was proud to launch the assault-style firearm compensation program in Nova Scotia. We look forward to expanding it across Canada. This is part of a broader plan to ensure that our guns are off our street. It includes changes to the criminal code. It includes resources at the border, $1.3 billion investments at the border. And, Mr. Speaker, Bill C-2 is right in the House today. I invite the party opposite to support us so that we can get that through Parliament.
The Honourable Member for Dufferin-Caledon.
Except in a private conversation, this minister said the exact opposite thing. He called the Liberal gun buyback a politically motivated scam. Now, imagine what could be done with this $750 million. How many police officers could be hired? How many border officers could be hired? How many scanners could be purchased to find the illegal guns coming in from the United States? And yet, he's doing nothing. He's pushing forward with his politically motivated scam. Canadians deserve better. They deserve to be safe. This is staggering incompetence. Why won't the Prime Minister fire him?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, staggering incompetence is when you think that AR-15s can be used for hunting and for farming, Mr. Speaker. We have brought forward a very important plan in Nova Scotia. We look forward to expanding it across Canada, Mr. Speaker. We look forward to doing that in the near future. We're going to be investing in 1,000 new RCMP as well as 1,000 new CBSA officers, Mr. Speaker. We will ensure that our borders are safe and guns are off our streets.
The Honourable Member for Barrie South Innisfil.
600 foreign nationals with criminal convictions are roaming around Canadian cities. More than half are on the CBSA's wanted list, and their whereabouts are unknown. Over 70% of these non-citizen criminals have been convicted of serious crimes, including sexual assault. The Public Safety Minister has one job, and that's to keep Canadians safe. On this and many other issues, he is failing miserably. And it's really hard to believe that the Prime Minister just yesterday said he has confidence in the minister. Why won't he fire this minister? Because not doing so calls into question the Prime Minister's judgment.
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, this year the Canada Border Service Agency has removed over 20,000 people, Mr. Speaker. This is one of the largest removals in Canadian history. CBSA will continue to do its job, Mr. Speaker. We will ensure that we're hiring another 1,000 new CBSA officers to strengthen the border and to ensure enforcement, and we will continue to make sure that our borders are safe. We will, at the same time, ensure that guns are off our streets, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Barrie South Innisfil.
He can't find them. He can't find the 600 serious criminals who are non-citizens who should be deported but are roaming the streets of Canadian cities. The minister had the entire summer to come up with a plan to find these convicted non-citizen criminals who've been convicted of crimes like sexual assault. He lost them, and he can't find them. My question through you to the Prime Minister, if this level of incompetence happened at Brookfield, would he still have the confidence in that person, or would he fire them?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, this year the Canada Border Service Agency will be removing 20,000 people who are not eligible to be here, Mr. Speaker. This is one of the highest in recorded Canadian history. We will continue to strengthen the border. We will continue to remove those who are not eligible to be here, Mr. Speaker. We will also be investing in 1,000 new CBSA officers, along with 1,000 new RCMP officers to make our borders stronger.
The Honourable Member for Windsor West.
Mr. Speaker, the #1 job of the Public Safety Minister is to keep Canadians safe. The Liberals promised to hire 1,000 border officers, and yet their own documents reveal they have not hired any, and have no plans to do so either. This will result in more guns and fentanyl being smuggled across borders like Windsor and Sarnia. This Public Safety Minister has failed miserably. How does the Prime Minister still have confidence in this minister? Why won't he fire him?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, this new government has made historic investments in our border, and that goes for CBSA as well, Mr. Speaker. We are in the process of starting to hire 1,000 new personnel for the CBSA and 1,000 new personnel for the RCMP. We're going to do the work necessary so that guns do not get into Canada. These are investments that are necessary, while the Conservatives, all they did was make cuts. Cuts to CBSA, cuts to the RCMP, cuts to law enforcement that needed them the most. We're going to invest in these programs to make sure that we can fight crime in Canada.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent, Akiawenrak. Mr. Speaker, after 10 years of Liberal government, crime is on the rise. Violent crime has increased by 55%. Gun crimes have increased by 130%. Extortion has increased by 330%. That's a Liberal track record after 10 years. Now, the Minister of Public Safety has acknowledged that the gun buyback program has failed, that it's not working, that it's a waste of money, and that it will do nothing to keep Canadians safe. He is a minister in charge of the program. Why would the Prime Minister keep such a hypocritical minister? The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, it's difficult to accept criticism of the Conservative when it comes to issues of crime, given their complete lackadaisical approach when it comes to protecting Canadians against gun violence. When you look at their record when they were last in government, they eroded investments at the border that makes it easier to have guns illegally smuggled into this country. At every opportunity, they have voted against measures that take assault-style weapons off our streets. Mr. Speaker, we have put measures in place that ban the kinds of weapons that have used to kill RCMP officers in Moncton, that have killed people during the École Polytechnique shooting, and that will potentially kill people going forward. We need to take gun crime seriously. I wish that...
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent, Akiawenrak. Mr. Speaker, the Justice Minister should use his words to try to convince the Public Safety Minister, because he doesn't seem to believe that the gun buyback program works at all. That's $750 million, which will not be used for the right things. The minister himself said it. Why is the Prime Minister keeping that minister in position? How can the Prime Minister tolerate having a minister who privately acknowledged that the program doesn't work? He believes the exact opposite of what he's supposed to believe. The Honourable Secretary of State for Nature. Mr. Speaker, I survived the Polytechnique attacks. 14 women lost their lives. Then, one of the largest petitions ever was tabled in the House of Commons. Women were calling for the removal of assault-style guns from our streets. Now, over 70% of Canadians, even in rural areas, want these guns taken off our streets. This is not about hunting rifles. This is about rifles that are designed to kill. We promise to do this, and we will. The Honourable Member. The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, there's a saying that when the United States sneezes, Canada catches a cold. That must be why, as Donald Trump rants about climate change at the United Nations, Canada is turning against climate action through Bill C-5. 250 municipal councillors joined forces to call on the Prime Minister to build the country up rather than burn it down. They're demanding that major projects under C-5 promote public transit and energy-efficient housing and more, not that they promote oil and gas. Will the Prime Minister and the government listen to mayors or to Donald Trump? The Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change. Mr. Speaker, if he had been listening yesterday and the previous days, he would have heard our Prime Minister at the UN talking about climate change and how Canada has been and will continue to be a leader in fighting climate change. We are doing good work, we're doing the right thing, and I hope that he will support us. The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, the 250 municipal councillors remind us that climate change is all too real. This summer alone, 95 municipalities experienced dangerous quality air. 54 municipalities experienced forest fires. 37 experienced evacuations. 29 experienced extreme heat. To quote the mayor of Montreal, we must build up our economy by moving as far away as possible from the development of fossil fuels. Do the Liberals understand that rather than promoting oil and gas, we must move away from them? The Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change. Mr. Speaker, I get the impression that the Bloc member across the way did not listen to the right speech. Had he listened to our Prime Minister's speech, he would understand that we take the fight on climate change very seriously. We will continue our good work. We want to build up a strong country. We will continue to work toward that. Thank you.
Foothills. After 10 years of Liberal mismanagement, Canadians can't afford to put food on the table. In August, food inflation outpaced overall inflation by 84%, and food prices have gone up another 3.5%. But it was this Prime Minister who told Canadians he would be judged by the cost of food. Well, it's now Canadians who are paying the price for 10 years of Liberal photo ops, higher inflation, and breaking Canadian promises. Was this the Canadian dream that the Prime Minister promised? A country where Canadians can't feed their families?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, do you know what the best predictor of future behavior is? Past behavior. That's right. And Canadians have watched.
The Minister. Okay, the Minister may continue.
Mr. Speaker, they might not applaud so loudly after I read through the list of things that these folks have voted against year after year. Mr. Speaker, school food programs, childcare, tax cuts, support for training, support for union investments, Canada Summer Jobs, Mr. Speaker. Canadians wanted a government that believes in them, that invests in them, and they have that with this government.
The Honourable Member for Foothills.
Well, let's look at the past record. Justin Trudeau promised to Canadians that he would lower food prices by Thanksgiving of 2023. Never happened. This Prime Minister told Canadians that he should be judged by the cost of food at the grocery store. Well, judgment has been rendered. Beef is up 33%, grapes up 22%, coffee 24%. And now we have apple farmers raising the alarm with the sharp increase in theft of their product because Canadians can't afford the grocery store. How many people and how many families are going to be forced to the food bank before this Prime Minister admits Canadians he broke his promise?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Well, if there is a silver lining, Mr. Speaker. It's that I see some promise in perhaps that member supporting the budget that will be tabled very shortly this fall, where we will propose ambitious investments in Canadians, in Canadian families, in Canadian workplaces, in Canadian unions, in major projects, in our national defense system. Mr. Speaker, I can only hope that Conservatives have seen the light and they should stop voting against Canadian interests.
The honourable member for New Tecumseh, Gwillimbury.
Mr. Speaker, while the Prime Minister jets around the world shaking hands with dictators and diplomats, Canadians are lining up in food banks in record numbers. He says he wants to be judged by the price of food in grocery stores, but he's too busy seeking approval at the UN to notice how much worse food insecurity is now for Canadians. Food prices have risen 50% faster in Canada than in the United States since March. How many more families must go hungry before he admits he's failed?
L'honorable ministre des Finances.
Mr. Speaker, I have enormous respect for this member, but it seems he's been missing in action this summer, Mr. Speaker, because this summer, 22 million Canadians got a tax cut, Mr. Speaker. He should be standing there and celebrating, but instead, Mr. Speaker, he fought against childcare. He fought against the Canadian Dental Care Program. He voted against the food program, Mr. Speaker. At every step of the way, the Conservative fought against Canadian. We'll stand on the side of Canadians, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for New Tecumseh, Gwillimbury.
Well, Mr. Speaker, from what we see, this Liberal government cares more about international headlines than bread lines that Canadians are stuck in. They're saying, what about us, as food insecurity reaches a crisis point across the country? In my area, Simcoe County, a third of households can't afford to properly feed their families. Millions of Canadians are chasing their next meal. So why is the Prime Minister so focused on chasing applause from world leaders than the crisis right here at home?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, there might be a new election, but the same old Conservative, Mr. Speaker. Same old Conservative. Slogans won't feed children, Mr. Speaker. Slogans won't do that, Mr. Speaker. But you know what's going to help family, Mr. Speaker? Is taking action like cutting tax for 22 million Canadians. Instead of fighting against child care, instead of fighting against farmer care, instead of fighting against dental care, let them see if they're going to vote for this budget that's going to be generational to build this country, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, after 10 years of this Liberal government and uncontrolled spending, the cost of living is skyrocketing. Our seniors now skip a meal a day to pay rent. The Prime Minister has broken his promise. He's spending more and delivering much less. Every month, the Moisson Beauce, a food bank, receives 6,000 requests from people in Beauce, and unfortunately 30% of these are from children. It doesn't make sense. Mr. Speaker, will this Prime Minister stop attacking Canadian families and take care of real problems that he's created himself? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Mr. Speaker, in this chamber, we're all gathered together to improve the cost of living for Canadians. We need to work together to meet their needs. And I'd like to point out to my colleague that last week, the Bank of Canada did reduce its key rate to ensure that many people in Canada, whether it's those who own a home or those who own a company, will finally be able to get a hand to make ends meet at the end of the year. But what I can also say is that we have cut taxes for the middle class and for first-time home buyers.
For Richmond East, Steveston.
Mr. Speaker, during the parliamentary recess weeks, I, along with my Pacific colleagues, worked actively on the mandate set out by our Right Honourable Prime Minister to engage with industry and all sectors to identify Canadians who want to collaborate, invest, and join us in building Canada. Can the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources please elaborate on how British Columbia is contributing to this nation-building effort and how our economic strategy ensures the needs of everyday citizens, like affordability, job creation, and regional equity, and being met through partnerships and investments.
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member for his question. Canada is undertaking a wartime-like effort to retool our economy and advance projects of national interest, including projects in British Columbia like the LNG Canada Phase 2 and the Red Chris mine, which will generate significant benefits for First Nations communities. I'd also like to let the member know that under the One Project, One Review, we are advancing projects like the new Silissum LNG export facility, led by the Nisga'a Nation, which will also have a pipeline associated with that project.
The honourable member for Middlesex London.
Speaker, the Prime Minister said that Canadians would judge him by the costs at the grocery store. Well, the Liberal record holds that food bank use is up 142% since 2015, and the Daily Bread Food Bank expects 4 million visits in 2025. Families are cutting meals while costs are climbing and wages stall. He promised he would bring relief, but he didn't bring home the bacon, an item that's up over 20%. So will the Prime Minister stop the bait and switch and cut costs so Canadian families can afford to eat?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors.
Speaker, seniors who built this country should never have to choose between paying for groceries or heating their homes. That's why our government has taken action. We're cutting red tape, we're building homes faster, we've introduced dental care, and more than 2 million seniors are already signed up to get benefits. We're building an economy that works for everyone. Let's be clear, Conservatives have a record of pushing the retirement age higher, cutting benefits, and leaving seniors behind. While they're voting against seniors, we are empowering older Canadians and protecting their dignity and peace of mind.
The honourable member for Middlesex London.
Promises are about as empty as Canadians' grocery carts. In Middlesex County, 1 in 4 families are food insecure. It means they have no idea where their next meal is going to come from. And food banks, they can't keep their shelves stocked. At the checkout, grapes are up 22%, canned soup up 26%, coffee up 22%, and sugar up 20%. The Prime Minister's policies have clearly failed. So will he back measures that actually cut costs, or will he keep feeding inflation while Canadians starve?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Children and Youth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for the question. Mr. Speaker, families clearly need support to tackle food insecurity. That is why we're ensuring that more children are getting nutritious meals at school, while saving parents hundreds of dollars with the National School Food Program. We're putting more money in parents' pockets tax-free every month. This is a program, may I remind my colleagues, that you all, on the opposite side of the House, voted against.
The honourable member for Sarnia-Lambton, Bekedrunong.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister said Canadians should judge him by prices at the grocery store. Well, since he got elected, Canada's food prices have surged 50% faster than in the U.S. After 10 years of Liberal rule, we have record lineups at food banks. Families can't afford to put food on their table. They're struggling. The Prime Minister promised he'd be different, but it's just another bait and switch. So when will the Prime Minister cut food taxes, stop his plan to double the deficit in order to bring grocery prices down?
The Honourable Minister of Northern and Arctic Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, Nutrition North is showing real progress with results that are reaching more Northerners every year. In its first year, more than 15,000 harvesters were supported with hundreds of hunts and over 700 food sharing initiatives from Nain, Nunatsiavut to Old Crow, Yukon, showing the program's reach across the north. In Nunavut, the price of flour in Rankin Inlet has dropped by more than 65%, and in Aluklik, a dozen eggs that was once nearly $10 are now just $5. And today, 124 communities across the north are being directly supported through Indigenous government.
The honourable member for Calgary Centre.
Mr. Speaker, after 10 years of Liberal mismanagement, food bank usage in Canada is up 142%. In Calgary, demand for emergency hampers rose another 17% this past year. The Prime Minister said Canadians would judge him by the cost at the grocery store. Well, they are. They're lining up at food banks. This isn't about inflation. It's about a government that's lost control of affordability, employment, and in the end, human dignity. When will the Prime Minister stop grading himself on promises and start delivering real, tangible results for Canadians?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Sport.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. You know, Food Banks Canada does essential work on the front lines, but they also make recommendations for politicians like us for better policies to support Canadians. So I'd put it back on that member. When we had a vote in this House of Commons just not that long ago on a national school food program, he voted against it. Every time we have a policy to support Canadians like $10 a day childcare or dental care, they vote against it. When we bring forward measures to ensure that there's more affordable housing for Canadians, they vote against it. So if you're going to quote the Food Banks Canada report, please read the report and consider some of their recommendations.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Crowfoot.
Mr. Speaker, the Calgary Herald reports record demand at the Calgary Food Bank as food prices at the grocery store continue to rise faster than inflation and as unemployment approaches 8% in Calgary. The Prime Minister said he'd be judged by the cost at the grocery store, and the verdict is a scathing indictment of this Prime Minister's performance. When will the Prime Minister stop running out-of-control deficits that are driving inflation, unemployment, and demand at the food bank?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, in the last election, Canadians had a clear choice between a leader with economic and business experience versus a leader opposite that has no economic experience whatsoever. We are laser focused on building a strong economy. We're cutting taxes for 22 million Canadians. We're cutting the GST for first-time homebuyers. Interest rates has just dropped. And we are going to build houses at a scale not seen since the Second World War. Mr. Speaker, it's time for the Conservatives to stop the rhetoric, help us build the strongest economy in the G7. Get on board.
The Honourable Member for Quebec-Mactaquac.
Mr. Speaker, after 10 years of this Liberal government, Canadians can't afford groceries. Back home, the River Valley Food Bank in Woodstock reports serving twice as many people this time of year compared to last. These increases span every age group, especially seniors. These are our neighbors. They're not just statistics. They're our family members and they're our friends. Can the Prime Minister tell this House how on one hand he plans on tackling inflation and bringing down grocery costs, while on the other hand he's doubling the nation's deficit? How's that even possible?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Secretary of State for Labour.
Mr. Speaker, every member of this House of Commons cares deeply about the cost of living for Canadians. But there's one difference, Mr. Speaker. There's one difference. On this side, we're bringing forward initiatives and opportunities for real Canadians by building this country, Mr. Speaker. We're going to build big, we're going to build bold, and we're going to build now, Mr. Speaker, with working Canadians. We're going to create hundreds of thousands of jobs, more opportunities for apprenticeship. Mr. Speaker, Conservative voters want this. I hope the opposition gets on board.
The Honourable Member for King Vaughan.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister promised Canadians he'd be judged at the cost of the grocery stores. Yet, in August, food inflation soared 70% higher than the overall inflation. Denise, a senior in Quebec, is now forced to skip meals to survive the crushing cost of living. This is another broken promise from a Prime Minister who has let our seniors down time and time again.
Shame.
Will this Prime Minister stop doubling the deficit in order to bring down inflation so seniors don't have to skip their meals?
That's right. The Honourable Secretary of State for Rural Development.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Point out, Mr. Speaker, I've been hearing the Conservatives complain about food prices, Mr. Speaker, but not one solution, Mr. Speaker. Not one idea, not one iota of support for some of the measures we've taken on this side of the House, Mr. Speaker. So those are empty, hollow words, Mr. Speaker, and my message to the Leader of the Opposition and the Conservative caucus, slogans don't put food on the table, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Levis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, No one should have to go without food. Yet this week, the media reported stories of seniors who have to skip a meal to make ends meet. Unfortunately, this is the reality of a growing number of Quebec households which are being hit hard by food inflation twice as high as general inflation after 10 years of this Liberal government. Food banks can no longer meet the demand, and the last budget item that our seniors can cut is their meals, skipping one a day. Is the Prime Minister aware of the financial insecurity of our seniors? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. According to Quebecers, the Conservatives every day seem to find their conscience here in the House, but when they have to directly support seniors and families, all of a sudden their conscience can't be found. When it's time to vote for the Canada Child Benefit to reduce poverty, they vote against it. When we have to vote on a GIS increase for the most vulnerable seniors, they vote against it. When it's time to reduce the age for retirement, they vote against it. We have a serious government that is going to grow our economy to protect seniors. The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, our seniors suffer in silence from financial insecurity, are also suffering from hunger, and they suffer from unaffordable rents and unexpected cost of illness. The PM can no longer even imagine the situation from his ivory tower. Inflation is eating away at all their hard-earned savings. When will the Prime Minister finally take action? The duty of a Prime Minister is to have both feet on the ground. Now the Prime Minister's honeymoon is over. The Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. We had missed that, this type of performance, but these dramatic effects from the Conservatives don't put food on the tables. They don't to help seniors. And now that Quebecers and Canadians have rejected the Conservative approach of cutting the programs they need, now we can lead an ambitious plan to increase the purchasing power for Canadians with tax cuts for the middle class and to grow the potential of the Canadian economy. And I hope that they will support this ambitious plan.
Member for New Westminster, Burnaby, Maillardville.
Mr. Speaker, young Canadians are facing unprecedented challenges that are affecting their mental health and well-being. All too often, the services they need are fragmented or difficult to access, and they've not been designed with them in mind. Could the Minister of Health tell us what the government is doing to ensure that young Canadians receive the mental health support that they need?
The
Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the member for his question. Young people represent the strength to build our strong country, and mental health and addiction issues affect young people and young men, and this is one of my priorities, and that is why I'm pleased to announce that our government is investing in the creation of integrated services for young people across our country and in Quebec as well. We're opening centres, 17 in BC, for example. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Aurora Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, after 10 years of Liberal chaos, the housing market is a mess. Prices are still too high for buyers, sellers can't sell, and builders can't build. This Prime Minister promised change, but it's just another bait and switch. Housing starts have crashed. pre-construction sales in the GTA have plunged to levels not seen since the global financial crisis. Young people are still unable to afford a home in which to live. The Prime Minister's answer? More of the same. Another costly housing bureaucracy. When will this Prime Minister stop building bureaucracy and start building homes?
The Honourable Minister for Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I've got news for the member opposite. He's got to check his facts. Housing starts are up in August of 25. They are up 10% over August 2024. So Canadians are building. That's right. Canadians are building, the interest rate is dropping, and this government is committed to the most aggressive affordable housing program in our history. We will see housing built by the tens of thousands that is below market and accessible for all Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Elmwood Transcona.
Mr. Speaker, after 10 years of this Liberal government, we are in a housing crisis. Builders can't build and young Canadians are priced out of the market. Now, housing starts are down 16%, and a new report shows that Canada is at risk of losing 100,000 housing-related trades jobs. That means construction workers and tradespeople, like me, will all lose their livelihoods while this government refuses to get shovels in the ground. Why is the Prime Minister building another costly housing bureaucracy in Ottawa while workers are out of a job?
The Honourable Minister for Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, again, the facts speak for themselves. We're seeing housing starts surging in Montreal, where there's a 32% increase this past month. We're seeing it in Vancouver as well. We're seeing housing starts increase in many jurisdictions across the country. And we as a new government are doubling down to make sure we're supporting builders. We're working with provinces, territories, and mayors to make sure we're building affordable housing at a scale that was never embraced by the members opposite.
The Honourable Member for Windsor-Tecumseh Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, after 10 years of Liberal housing chaos, buyers can't buy, sellers can't sell, and builders can't build. My community has an unemployment rate of over 11%. It's the highest in Canada. And now we have one of the highest markets in which to buy a home. A new report states that homeownership is only for the very wealthy in Windsor. When will the Prime Minister stop his empty promises? When will he stop building bureaucracy and start building homes?
The Honourable Minister for Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, again, I'll restate the facts that under previous Conservative government, housing was completely ignored for a decade. The reinvestment has been building up, and we're taking it to the next level here with a $13 billion investment in affordable housing for Canada. That includes $1 billion to focus on homelessness and supportive housing in ridings across the country where people cannot access housing. We're going to build like never before.
The Honourable Member for Sault Ste. Marie Algoma.
Speaker, September 30th is the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Can the Minister of Indigenous Services please update this House on what our new government is doing to advance the goals of reconciliation? Chief Miigwech.
The Honourable Minister for Indigenous Services.
Mr. Speaker, this marks the 10th year of the TRC's calls to action. This government has made historic decisions to respond. In this very government, we saw the appointment of the first Indigenous Minister of Indigenous Services, so they can be served by their very own. Also seeing Indigenous voices at the cabinet table, creating space for representation and decision-making. A Prime Minister who advanced the TRC's foundational request of inclusion and belonging for September 30th and every day after that.
The Honourable Member for Kamloops, Shuswap, Central Rockies.
Mr. Speaker, farmers love their animals and would do anything to protect them. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency is planning to cull 400 ostriches in BC because of an outbreak of avian flu. When it comes to animal safety, Canadians expect due diligence and transparency. Canadians are looking to this government to explain why the cull is necessary, but the Liberal government has not posted a public update in over a month. Canadians want to know, why did the Liberal ministers not work with the agriculture sector to resolve this issue?
L'honorable ministre de la
The Honorable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to make sure that this member knows that I am working very closely with the Minister of Agriculture, and the case is now in front of the court, so I won't comment more. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
The NDP fought tooth and nail for the $4 billion investment in the for Indigenous, by Indigenous, urban, rural, and northern housing strategy. Yet 2 years later, the money still has not flowed. Shovel-ready projects are stalled while the housing crisis for Indigenous, Inuit, and Métis people continue to escalate. In creating Building Canada Homes, the Prime Minister is admitting that CMHC is ill-equipped to deliver the much-needed affordable homes that Canadians need. Will the Prime Minister let Indigenous services take over so that they can do what is necessary for Indigenous-led housing providers access to funds to build the homes that the community desperately need?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister for Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your home is where
Go ahead, please.
where you should feel the safest. And many Indigenous people live in housing that is overcrowded, contaminated, and affordable. But this new Build Better Homes Canada is going to finance Indigenous housing providers to grow affordable housing in community while catalyzing capital for a revolutionary approach to home building in community at a space that we've never seen in the darkest decade of government, the Conservative era.
I wish to draw the attention of members to the presence in the gallery of the Right Honourable Joe Clark, 16th Prime Minister of Canada. Also, the Honourable Siobhan Cody, Deputy Premier, Minister of Finance and President of the Treasury Board for the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. And I would also draw the attention of members to the presence in the gallery of the finalists of the 2025 Shaughnessy Cohen Prize for Political Writing. Please hold your applause until we have all been recognized. Raymond B. Clark, Stephen Marr, the Honourable Jane Philpott, Alice Dare Roberts, Tanya Talaga. Okay. It being 3:14, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the motion of Mr. Fortin relating to the business of supply. Convoquez les députés. Call in the members. Vente. Monsieur Fortin, appuyé par... Mr. Fortin, seconded by Ms. Normandin, moved that the House call on the government to fully withdraw from the legal challenge of Quebec's act respecting the laicity of the state before the Supreme Court. B, call on the government to withdraw its factum filed on September 17, 2025, with the Supreme Court contesting Quebec's right to invoke the notwithstanding clause. And C, denounce the government's willingness to use the Supreme Court to take constitutional powers away from Quebec and the provinces. The 10-minute period for members voting electronically has started, and the House will now proceed to the vote for members participating in person. All those in favor of the motion will please rise.
Monsieur Blanchet.
Monsieur Garon.
Monsieur Garon.
Madame Normandin.
Madame Normandin.
Monsieur Brunel-Duceppe.
Monsieur Brunel-Duceppe.
Monsieur Simard.
Monsieur Simard.
Monsieur Fortin.
Monsieur Fortin.
Monsieur Thériault.
Monsieur Thériault.
Monsieur Champoux.
Monsieur Champoux.
Monsieur Perron.
Monsieur Perron.
Monsieur Deschênes.
Monsieur Deschênes.
Madame Gill, Côte-Nord, Kawawashikamak, Nitassinan.
Madame Gill, Côte-Nord, Kawawashikamak, Nitassinan.
Monsieur Bonin.
Monsieur Bonin.
Monsieur Sainte-Marie.
Monsieur Sainte-Marie.
Madame Larouche.
Madame Larouche.
Madame de Bellefeuille.
Madame de Bellefeuille.
Madame Godreau.
Madame Godreau.
Monsieur Beaulieu.
Monsieur Beaulieu.
Monsieur Barcelot-Duval.
Monsieur Barcelot-Duval.
Monsieur Blanchette-Jonca.
Monsieur Blanchette-Jonca.
Monsieur Lemire.
Monsieur Lemire.
Mr. Scheer. Mr. Doherty.
Mr. Doherty.
Mr. Schmale.
Mr. Schmale.
Mr. Brock.
Mr. Brock.
Mrs. Block.
Mrs. Block.
Monsieur Deltel.
Monsieur Deltel.
Monsieur Paulus.
Monsieur Paulus.
Miss Lewis Haldeman Norfolk.
Miss Lewis Haldeman Norfolk.
Mr. Barlow.
Mr. Barlow.
Mr. Seaback.
Mr. Seaback.
Mr. Albus.
Mr. Albus.
Monsieur d'Entremont.
Monsieur d'Entremont.
Mr. Major.
Mr. Major.
Mr. Jennis.
Mr. Jennis.
Monsieur Brassard.
Monsieur Brassard.
Mr. Moore.
Mr. Moore.
Monsieur Berthold.
Monsieur Berthold.
Mr. Warkington.
Mr. Workington.
Mrs. Cramp-Nyman.
Mrs. Cramp-Nyman.
Mr. Morin.
Mr. Morin.
Mr. Ross.
Mr. Ross.
Madame Vien.
Madame Vien.
Monsieur Godin.
Monsieur Godin.
Monsieur Martel.
Monsieur Martel.
Mr. Cooper.
Mr. Cooper.
Mr. Lloyd.
Mr. Lloyd.
Mr. Van Popta.
Mr. Van Popta.
Mr. Kelly.
Mr. Kelly.
Monsieur Généreux.
Monsieur Généreux.
Monsieur Gould.
Monsieur Gould.
Mr. Viss.
Mr. Viss.
Mr. Tucker.
Mr. Tucker.
Mr. Lobb.
Mr. Lobb.
Mr. Baldinelli.
Mr. Baldinelli.
Mr. Davidson.
Mr. Davidson.
Mr. Malillo.
Mr. Malillo.
Mr. Calkins.
Mr. Calkins.
Mr. Lawrence.
Mr. Lawrence.
Mr. Muse.
Mr. Muse.
Mr. Waugh.
Mr. Waugh.
Mrs. Goodridge.
Mrs. Goodridge.
Mrs. Falk, Battlefords, Lloydminster, Meadow Lake.
Mrs. Falk, Battlefords, Lloydminster, Meadow Lake.
Miss Gledoux.
Gledoux.
Mr. Majumdar.
Mr. Majumdar.
Mr. Ho.
Mr. Ho.
Mr. Shipley.
Mr. Shipley.
Mr. Bragdon.
Mr. Bragdon.
Mr. Redicop.
Mr. Redicop.
Mr. Tolmy.
Mr. Tolmy.
Monsieur Mallet, Kapuskasing Timmins, Mushkigawuk.
Monsieur Mallet, Kapuskasing Timmins, Mushkigawuk.
Monsieur Lefebvre. Mr. Arnold. Mr. Hoback.
Mr. Hoback.
Mr. Vierson.
Mr. Vierson.
Mr. Epp.
Mr. Epp.
Mr. Falk Provencher.
Mr. Falk Provencher.
Mr. Diot.
Mr. Diot.
Mr. Macaulay.
Mr. Macaulay.
Mr. Menegakis.
Mr. Menegakis.
Mrs. Wagenthal.
Mrs. Wagenthal.
Mrs. Jansen.
Mrs. Jansen.
Mr. Albutaev.
Mr. Albutaev.
Mr. Motts.
Mr. Motts.
Mr. Dalton.
Mr. Dalton.
Mr. Dowdle.
Mr. Dowdle.
Mr. Cram.
Mr. Cram.
Mr. Lewis Essex.
Mr. Lewis Essex.
Mr. McLean Calgary Center.
Mr. McLean Calgary Center.
Mr. Patzer.
Mr. Patzer.
Mr. Giovanni.
Mr. Giovanni.
Mrs. Anstey.
Mrs. Anstey.
Mr. Owl.
Mr. Owl.
Mr. Bailey.
Mr. Bailey.
Mr. Bexty.
Mr. Bexty.
Mr. Bonk.
Mr. Bonk.
Mrs. Borelli.
Mrs. Borelli.
Miss Cobina.
Miss Cabina.
Mrs. Cody.
Mrs. Cody.
Mr. Davies, Niagara South.
Mr. Davies, Niagara South.
Mr. Dawson.
Mr. Dawson.
Mrs. DeReader.
Mrs. DeRitter.
Mr. Gill, Calgary Skyview.
Mr. Gill, Calgary Skyview.
Mr. Gill, Brampton West.
Mr. Gill, Brampton West.
Mr. Gill, Calgary McKnight.
Mr. Gill, Calgary McKnight.
Mr. Gill, Windsor West.
Mr. Gill, Windsor West.
Mr. Kimmich.
Mr. Kimmich.
Mr. Nader.
Mr. Nader.
Monsieur Groslo.
Mr. Groslo.
Mr. Googlemin.
Mr. Googleman.
Mr. Gunn.
Mr. Gunn.
Monsieur Hardy.
Mr. Hardy.
Mr. Holman.
Mr. Holman.
Mr. Jackson.
Mr. Jackson.
Miss Kirkland.
Miss Kirkland.
Mrs. Conant.
Mrs. Conant.
Mr. Ruff.
Mr. Ruff.
Miss Cronus.
Miss Cronus.
Mr. Couric.
Mr. Kirk.
Mr. Lawton.
Mr. Lawton.
Mr. Ma.
Mr. Ma.
Mr. Mahal.
Mr. Mahal.
Mr. Mantle.
Mr. Mantle.
Mr. McKenzie.
Mr. McKenzie.
Mr. Reynolds.
Mr. Reynolds.
Mr. Rowe.
Mr. Rowe.
Mr. Stevenson.
Mr. Stevenson.
Tous ceux qui s'opposent à la motion.
All those opposed to the motion will please rise.
Yeah.
Mr. McGinty.
Mr. McGinty.
Mr. Lightbound.
Mr. Lightbound.
Mr. Robertson.
Mr. Robertson.
Miss Thompson.
Miss Thompson.
Miss Hodgson.
Mr. Hodgson.
Mr. Fraser.
Mr. Fraser.
Miss Oljevsky.
Ms. Osiewski.
Mrs. Valdez.
Mrs. Valdez.
Monsieur Duclos.
Mr. Duclos.
Miss Gould.
Ms. Gould.
Madame Pittspa-Taylor.
Madame Pittspa-Taylor.
Mr. Blair.
Mr. Blair.
Miss Fry.
Ms. Fry.
Mr. Fragiscatos.
Mr. Fragiscato.
Mr. Fuhr.
Mr. Fuhr.
Mr. Vancouverden.
Mr. Vancouverden.
Madame Provost.
Madame Provost.
Miss Sahota.
Miss Sahota.
Mr. Belanger. Desnati, Mississippi, Churchill River.
Mr. Belanger. Mississippi, Churchill River.
Miss McKnight.
Miss McKnight.
Miss Chartrand.
Miss Chartrand.
Mr. Garrettson.
Mr. Garrettson.
Miss Alty.
Miss Alty.
Mrs. Galmasty.
Mrs. Galmasty.
Miss McLean. Esquimalt Saanich Suk.
Miss McLean. Esquimalt Saanich Suk.
Mr. Zericelli.
Mr. Zericelli.
Madame Chanette.
Madame Chanette.
Madame Minard.
Madame Menard.
Monsieur Miller.
Monsieur Miller.
Miss Jazik.
Miss Jazik.
Miss Scroll.
Miss Scroll.
Mr. Duguid.
Mr. Duguid.
Mr. Fisher.
Mr. Fisher.
Mr. Dollywall.
Mr. Dollywall.
Madame Chattel.
Madame Chattel.
Mr. Lewis Kitchener-Conestoga.
Mr. Lewis Kitchener-Conestoga.
Monsieur Litao.
Mr. Leitio.
Mr. Bardisi.
Mr. Bardisi.
Miss Kayabaga.
Madame Kayabaga.
Mr. Lamoureux.
Mr. Lamoureux.
Madame Brière.
Madame Brière.
Mr. Calloway.
Mr. Calloway.
Monsieur Gay.
Mr. Gay.
Mr. Hogan.
Mr. Hogan.
Monsieur Ramsey.
Mr. Ramsey.
Madame Koutrakis.
Madame Koutrakis.
Miss Chi.
Miss Chi.
Mr. Miles.
Mr. Miles.
Mr. Biddle.
Mr. Biddle.
Mr. Chen.
Mr. Chen.
Miss Dillon.
Miss Dillon.
Miss Zerowitz.
Miss Zerowitz.
Monsieur Fergus.
Monsieur Fergus.
Mr. Fonseca.
Mr. Fonseca.
Monsieur Iacono.
Monsieur Iacono.
Mr. Maloney.
Mr. Maloney.
Miss Suds.
Miss Suds.
Madame Desrochers.
Madame Desrochers.
Mrs. McKelvey.
Mr. McKelvey.
Mr. Gasparo.
Mr. Gasparo.
Madame Rochefort.
Madame Rochefort.
Mr. Casey.
Mr. Casey.
Madame Bendayan.
Madame Bendayan.
Madame Fortier.
Madame Fortier.
Mr. Baptiste.
Mr. Baptiste.
Mr. Classen.
Mr. Classen.
Madame Lavac.
Madame Lavac.
Mr. Turnbull.
Mr. Turnbull.
Miss Church.
Miss Church.
Mr. McKinnon, Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam.
Mr. McKinnon, Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam.
Mr. Morrissey.
Mr. Morrissey.
Miss Cedar Brampton South.
Miss Cedar Brampton South.
Miss Vandenbelt.
Miss Vandenbelt.
Mrs. Zaid.
Mrs. Zaid.
Miss Yip.
Miss Yip.
Madame Lalonde.
Madame Lalonde.
Mr. Pawlowski.
Mr. Pawlowski.
Mr. Weiler.
Mr. Weiler.
Monsieur Zubiri.
Monsieur Zuberi.
Mr. Elfson.
Mr. Elfson.
Mr. Baines.
Mr. Baines.
Mr. Gahir.
Mr. Gahir.
Miss Hefner.
Miss Hefner.
Mr. Carr.
Mr. Carr.
Miss Akan.
Miss Akan.
Mr. Al-Soud.
Mr. Alson.
Madame Auguste.
Madame Auguste.
Mr. Chan.
Mr. Chan.
Mr. Clark.
Mr. Clark.
Mr. Connors.
Mr. Connors.
Madame Dandurand.
Madame Dandurand.
Mr. Danko.
Mr. Danko.
Monsieur Deschaines Thériault.
Mr. Deschaines Thériault.
Mr. Earl.
Mr. Earl.
Miss Fancy.
Miss Fancy.
Mr. Fanjoy.
Mr. Fanjoy.
Mr. Greaves.
Mr. Greaves.
Miss Harrison.
Miss Harrison.
Miss Hurdle.
Miss Hurdle.
Monsieur Joseph.
Monsieur Joseph.
Monsieur Lavoie.
Monsieur Lavoie.
Mr. McDonald Cardigan.
Mr. McDonald Cardigan.
Miss Miedema.
Miss Miedema.
Madame Mingarelli.
Madame Mingarelli.
Miss Naughton.
Miss Naughton.
Miss Whean.
Miss Whean.
Monsieur Tumba.
Monsieur Tumba.
Miss O'Rourke.
Miss O'Rourke.
Mr. Rana.
Mr. Rana.
Miss Royer.
Miss Royer.
Mr. Saini.
Mr. Saini.
Monsieur Sari.
Monsieur Sari.
Mr. Sawatsky.
Mr. Sawatsky.
Miss Sodi.
Miss Sodi.
Monsieur Saint-Pierre.
Mr. Saint-Pierre.
Miss Tesser Dirksen.
Miss Tesser Dirksen.
Monsieur Villeneuve.
Monsieur Villeneuve.
Monsieur Boulris.
Monsieur Boulris.
Miss Kwan.
Miss Kwan.
Mr. Johns.
Mr. John.
Miss May.
Miss May.
La Chambre attendra maintenant la fin.
The House will now wait for the end of the electronic voting period before resuming its proceedings.
Je désire informer.
I wish to inform the House that the electronic voting period has ended. If members were unable to vote due to technical difficulties, they may now use the raise hand function, and the chair will recognize them.
Oui, l'honorable
The honourable member for Hull-Elmer. Mr. Speaker, the system said for a short time that I had voted electronically, but I was here in the House. I wish to confirm that my vote was properly counted in person here in the House.
Le bureau va maintenant compiler les résultats du vote.
The table will now compile the results of the vote.
159. Nays compte 168, 168.
Je déclare la motion.
I declare the motion defeated. Point of order.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, there are many members are still relatively new, but the rules around voting are quite clear. Once the question has been called, members must be in their seat if they're voting in the chamber and must not leave their place. I understand the member, I believe, of Bourassa had left the chamber and returned before the vote was finished. So if his vote was counted by the clerk, it would have to be deleted. It would have to be taken off because he would not be eligible to vote.
The first question is whether the member voted electronically or voted in person. Voted in person, and one cannot leave the chair, his seat, unfortunately. Yes, the honourable member, l'honorable député de Bourassa.
The honourable member for Bourassa. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The vote had already finished. I'd like to finish what I'm saying here. The vote was finished.
Même si le vote est terminé, on doit rester.
Even if the voting is done, one must remain until the result of the vote is announced. Will we have to withdraw the member's vote?
I'd like to point out
it doesn't change the result of the vote.
It's the first time in my experience in the chamber, which has been a long one, that I've seen props during votes. So I just want to make sure that everyone's aware that that's not permitted.
The honourable member for Berthier-Masquinongé. I'm rising on the same point of order, Mr. Speaker. Props are not allowed in the House. I was going to remind the House of that, but you just did so.
Government would no? Okay. Inform the House that because of the deferred recorded division, the time provided for government orders will be extended by 13 minutes. Je désire informer la Chambre que le volume.
I wish to inform the House that the volume of earpieces will now be reset.
I'll give members a few seconds to leave the chamber quietly.